actually have a little bit of a reveal for you guys, because I want you to be able to see what this technique is going to look like once we are all finished. So I have my beautiful blonde mannequin here who has already been done. She has already been done with this exact same technique, and what I am going to show you guys is how to create a beautiful blended highlighted look. But the goal is working with a face framing highlight. So this is our client, and she is looking to get her face frame blended into her highlight. So what we are going to do is we're going to figure out how we can go into highlighting her hair while blending in her face framing highlight. So typically you'll have where you have that nice bright pop of blonde right around the face, and if you have darker hair, then sometimes there's a high contrast between that blonde around your face and some of your natural hair. So the goal is to get her a beautiful blended highlight with her face frame. Okay, so that is the goal. This is our inspiration for today's class. As you guys can see, you still have that brightness around the face, but we are looking to blend that into her natural hair. So our mannequin that we're going to be working with, she's already been done on one side. As you guys can see, one side is wet. So we are going to be toning in the second half of today's class. So make sure that you have your notebooks and your pencils, because I'm going to be telling you guys exactly what I'm toning with, and we're going to be highlighting the other half of her head. But before we already start our highlighting process, we have to prep and protect the hair with our Defy Damage Pro Series 1. This is an aerosol spray which is utilized to help keep the integrity of the hair. This is your bond protection before you even go into your color process. So my suggestion is, if you are a colorist who is introducing this to your clients for the first time, the best option, in my opinion, is to build this into your color services. For me, typically any color service that I offer, I make sure to treat the hair before I start the color process with my Defy Damage Pro Series 1. When I'm doing my consultations with my clients, I explain to them what it is, what it does, and how it's going to benefit them. I show them exactly the process as I just did for you guys, and I let them know it's a very quick and easy process, and all I'm doing is making sure to ensure the integrity of their hair as I am doing their lightener process. So anytime that you are doing a chemical process, a color process, lightener, etc., utilize your Defy Damage Pro Series 1, because that's going to be a great add-on and upcharge for you, and it's going to be a guarantee of protection for your client and for the health of their hair. So that is always going to be your first step when you are planning to do your chemical services. And then your second step, of course, is going to be getting your sectioning. And so what I've done is I've taken a slice from about 1/4 inch from behind the part, and I take a diagonal back section above the ear, and then I do the same from the base of the neck, and I am taking a 1/2 or 1/4 inch section from the base of the nape, and I'm coming up to right above the ear. And so both of those slices are going to be where you're going to blend in that face framing highlight. The reason why is because we want this to go from what looks like singular color or a color block section to a blended, more natural section. So I'm going to work on this section first. And what I'm going to do, first and foremost, because there's already some face framed or some blonde highlighting around the front of the face, I'm going to leave that section out and do it last. The reason why is because this application that I'm going to do is going to definitely lift the hair fairly quickly, because I'm going to be utilizing BlondeLife Cream Lightener in 20 volume, and I'm going to be utilizing LumiShine Permanent Cream in 10 NV, and that's natural violet. I'm going to be utilizing both of those formulas to get the lift that I am desiring. So I don't want to overcompromise this hair. So I'm going to leave this out, and I'm going to hit this absolutely last because it's already been pre-lightened. But what I'm going to do after that, my next section, I am going to work off of the front of the head, and I'm going to work my way back. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So I'm just going to take a nice slice. My first slice is going to be a slight horizontal. And I'm going to take my first section. My first section is going to be paper thin to where I can read through. And the reason why is because I am applying permanent color to this section. I want to make sure that my saturation is on point, and I do not want to come back to this section and realize that I did not have enough saturation. So I'm going to utilize my permanent color. And this is, again, Lumishine Permanent Cream in 10 NV Natural Violet. And this is mixed with 30 Volume Developer. And so what I want to do essentially is I want to get, 40 Volume Developer. I apologize. I want to get up to about 4 levels of lift. And the reason why I'm going to use 40 volume in this case, her starting level is about a 5'6". And so I want to get as much lift as I can. With permanent color, typically permanent color and developer will give you up to so many levels of lift. So in this case, we are using a 10 NV, and that's the highest that our permanent shades will go. I'm using 10 NV and 40 volume on hair that is about a level 6. And so to get at least 4 levels of lift and maybe 3.5, I want to make sure that I'm getting as much lift as I possibly can. We're putting this inside of foils, and it's going to be processing at room temperature. So I should be able to get her up to a nice, beautiful, clean, at least level 9.5. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm also taking very thin sections. Be mindful of that, because when you are dealing with permanent color, it's very creamy in consistency. So you want to make sure that you mix it to the right consistency. And just to give you guys an idea, I have my permanent cream and I have my 40 volume in my bowl. The mixing ratio is going to be 1:1. So 1 part color to 1 part developer, equal parts. And so today we are using about 1.5 ounces of color just on this half head. And we're going to follow up with 1.5 ounces of 40 volume developer. And so your mixing ratio is going to be a perfect equal 1:1 ratio. And when you are done mixing it, you will see most of the lumps and clumps are out of it. It's a nice creamy consistency. And so I like to make sure that it's completely mixed. And the great thing about our permanent creams is they are movable. They're very creamy. They apply very well and very easy. But also with them, you're able to get great saturation, especially if you are dealing with very dense or full hair. So make sure that you're mindful of your mixing ratio and what you're going to be using. Now, remember I said we already have one section in the front that's highlighted. We're going to touch that up with BlondeLife Cream Lightener at the very end of our process. We're going to leave that out until we're ready for it. Behind this last foil, we're going to leave 1 slice of darkness out because we want our brightness to pop against those dark pieces. So what we are essentially creating is a tritonal look without having to do much work. And you guys will see as I am working through my sections, you'll be able to see how much more quickly I'm able to work through. And so another thing that I would suggest, guys, for the comfort of your client, but also for your comfort as well, try working with your sections from the back. So instead of foiling onto your client's face, foil back on the curvature of the head and use the shape of the head similar to your hand or a paddle. It really helps for you to be able to get good saturation on your section still, but get your foils into the hair very well. So I like to actually work backwards. And I know that that might seem a little crazy to some people, but it really helps me to make sure that I get my sections nice and clean. I keep them neat, and my foils are applied exactly how I want them to be applied. So I like to make sure that I'm keeping tension on my section as I'm working through. So I continue to pull the section of hair, and as I pull it, it keeps my foil in place. I like to turn my brush slightly sideways because that helps me to be able to get good saturation. And also, I feather the color backwards instead of feathering it down. It just helps to keep saturation at the very edge of the foil where I'm going to stop, so I don't get that line of demarcation, and also I'm not getting that orange brass where some of the product might lift off. So just make sure to use good pressure so that you can get good saturation. And when I'm done, I can fold all of these foils forward. So it's not a hassle to me or to my client, and she's not uncomfortable. All of these foils aren't sitting in her face. It's a great way for you to make sure that your client stays comfortable while you're lightening and coloring their hair. So while I'm working, I just keep taking slices. So my next slice is going to be right behind the last one. I'm going to take that section, because remember, we're leaving some hair out in between those slices because we're trying to create a tri-tonal look or a three-toned look. So I'm going to take that slice, pull it back, and I'm going to use a clip to clip it out of my way. And I like to use these little pin curl clips because they just help to keep everything nice, clean, and smooth. So I'm going to keep working with the same sectioning. I'm going to take another diagonal slice, and I'm going to, hold on one second, make sure I can see you guys' comments. There we go. All right. So I'm going to make sure that I'm still taking nice thin sections. I'm going to fold my foil in. And another great way to make sure that your foils are in there nice and tight is to over direct the hair forward and slide your foil in. Once you do, pulling that tension on your section, you guys see we're right on the scalp. So it's a great way for you to be able to make sure that you get that good saturation as well, but also get your foil as close as possible to the scalp. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did on the last section. And I'm going to feather forward, still holding tension on my section. I still have that hair nice and taut. That also, again, it helps to keep everything nice and clean. And when I am done, I typically will fold that hair forward and then make sure everything else is brushed in smoothly, so I can get all of the strands covered. I don't have to worry about any sections not being completely covered, and it keeps everything nice and clean. And then I'm going to use my pin curl clip, and I'm going to just clip the very corner of that foil. So it helps to keep everything in place while I am working through my sections. I'm going to do one more slice, and I'm going to bring that hair back, clip it up with my foils, and then we are going to apply our foil into our next section. And again, remember, you can over direct that hair and just slide your foil right on in there. It's a great way to make sure that you are getting that foil in there nice and close to the scalp. And this time I'm going to bring my color just a slight bit closer to the root. And doing it with feathering it like this is also a great way for you to be able to create what looks like a very light shadow root. It creates a super natural and blended look. And one thing I will say with the brunette trend coming back this past summer, a lot of people are still enjoying the lived-in look. They like being able to have a smooth transition between colors, and they also love low maintenance. So if you can give them a style or a color that is much more easily maintenance for them as well as for you, you're going to definitely have some happy clients on your hands. And now remember I said, guys, once I'm done with this section, I can just flip those foils right back over. They're not they're not disturbing me. They're not messing up my sectioning. And if my client gets uncomfortable, I just fold them back like that. Great way to make sure that your clients are comfortable during your color process and you can work efficiently. So I hope that you guys enjoy this method, because trust me when I say it's literally one of my favorites. I absolutely love doing it this way because it does help me to move quicker through my sections and I'm not overextending myself or my body. Now, I'm going to show you how I do it the opposite way. So when I'm working in the nape, typically you have the same problem. Most people probably have the same exact problem. When you're working in the nape and you're trying to lighten the hair, but then you got to get in the crook of the neck and you're trying to keep that foil straight and clean, but it's really, really hard. So I'm going to show you guys how I like to do this as well. So instead of working in the nape and trying to straighten my foil on the crook of the neck, I will just actually, let me clip this up, make sure that this section is out of the way. And what I'll do, I'm still working with diagonal sectioning. So what I like to do, I like to take my slice. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm using the base of the head as my board, or as I would with my hand. So I'm essentially taking my hand and I'm folding my foil up. So instead of going in and trying to work against the crook of the neck, I'm just going to use the base of the head. It's a really, really easy method to be able to get around the front of the face and around the crook of the neck or the nape of the neck, so that you can get good saturation and get your highlights nice and clean. I like to do this way because, again, it helps me to get my foil in there nice and close to the scalp, and it also reduces my foil sliding. A lot of the time when I try to do it the opposite way and I'm trying to work in that crook of the neck, I typically will have my foils kind of sliding down, especially because once you apply that lightener to the hair, the foil itself is a little bit heavier because it's holding all of that product plus the hair. So instead of giving it an opportunity to slide out, because I want to make sure that my foil processes completely, I just fold it up and apply my foil that way. That way I can make sure that I'm getting the saturation that I need. My foil is processing. I don't have to worry about it slipping. And I just use my little pin curl clip to hold it up. And I just keep doing the same thing. So this is a really, really great way for you guys to be able to get the coverage that you need, let the hair process completely. And again, use your little pin curl clips because they're great to keep the hair out of the way while you're working, but also keep your foil nice and flat. I know I'm not the only one who has struggled with my foils getting crinkled up by those alligator clips. Nobody has time for that. So make sure you use your pin curl clips because they work. So again, I'm going to take another diagonal slice, still working in the same method. And I am just going to get my section nice and taut. Sometimes it feels a little weird because you feel like you're working against gravity, but once you get used to it, you'll get used to just kind of sliding that foil in there. It's a really good and easy way to be able to get it locked in. And in this section, I am using my 10 NV Natural Violet. If this was my actual client, I would have her to just tilt her head forward slightly. So that way I can make sure that, of course, we're both comfortable. And so I like to try my best to work smarter when I am dealing with color. It's extremely time consuming because you have to take your time, especially if you're a perfectionist like me. I like to make sure I'm taking my time and I want to get it right. So in the midst of me working, I typically will find myself bent up in pretzels because I'm overcompensating or I'm overstretching or I'm overworking. So once I kind of fold that foil down, I just do what I would normally do. Drop the foil down and fold it up. And again, I don't feel like I have to worry about my client's hair over processing or my foil slipping out. It's much easier and it's much more gentle on you. So just be mindful of that when you guys are working through your sections. And when it's time for you to check your foils, because I always suggest checking your foils as you work through the hair, especially if you're mainly working with lightener. Because we're working with permanent color and lightener today, I'm going to finish this section completely, especially for the sake of time, because I want you guys to be able to see how I tone the opposite side. But when you're working with primarily lightener, I suggest taking a moment once you move through your sections to go back in and check your foils. It's a great way to make sure that the hair is processing properly and you are not missing out on what could potentially be bleeds or hollow spots where the lightener is not penetrating. So that's a really good method to be able to add to your repertoire. Go in and check your foils as you are working through your lightener sections. But again, because we're working with permanent color, it typically in this application style only takes me about 30 to maybe 45 minutes to actually do this application because I'm leaving hair out in between. So we're going to take our first slice. And I'm still working the exact same way, guys. You can keep working from the back and just over direct your foils, or you can move forward and work that way. But either way, it makes it much easier for you. So I'm going to work off of the top of this quadrant. And the reason why is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a very light halo of her hair over the top. And so I just split that last section into two. So essentially we're working with two quadrants. We're just breaking it up different. I'm going to take a very small slice off of the top. And what I like to say is just, it's a mountain, cut the peak off. If you cut the peak off, it gives you a light halo of dark over where your highlight is going to be. So if you got a quadrant, it's a mountain, cut the peak off. So I am going to take my foil, over direct my hair forward, slide my foil in there. This first section is going to be my 10 NV Natural Violet and 40 volume. And these are all going to be slices. I'm not doing any weaving. I want to try to get as much coverage as I can, especially because we are leaving hair out in between. Remember I said we're going for a very beautifully blended look. And so because we did not change her base color and we're going to blend her base color in, we're going to fully saturate all of the other sections because I want to make sure that I'm getting great coverage and I want to make sure that it's all blending together beautifully. So I'm going to take another slice, and all of my slices, if you guys are wondering, are a little less than 1/4 inch, just enough for you to read through. So I'm going to keep working. And for some reason, hold on guys. Oh, there we go. I was gonna say I couldn't see you guys' questions. If you guys have questions and you're posting them in the chat, please make sure to keep those coming because I definitely couldn't see them at first. Rich said, I like your technique. It's improving my skills. Amen. I love to hear that. It's a very simple and easy technique. Honestly, again, guys, I typically can do this in about 30 to 45 minutes. So it's a quick, easy process for me. Also because I've been doing it for a while. But I try to find ways that can improve my skills and my speed. Because I just want to make sure I'm moving at a timely manner for my clients, especially because color process is quite fast. So just being mindful of that. And then as I'm working on my highlighted sections, you guys will see I'm taking these and I am incorporating a balayage style application. So could you do a full saturation? Absolutely. But because this is a full lightener section, I know it's going to be very bright. I want to still have a little bit of depth in there to where I create a high and a low. So I'm going to create those peaks and valleys in some of my foils, similar to how you would do with balayage. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't realize that my comments weren't working. I couldn't see your questions. Okay, so Hair and Beauty said, what would you charge for this approximately? So, of course, it's different based on your area. So you want to keep in mind where you are and what you're charging for your services based on your area. But for me, I do an a la carte style pricing. So my service menu is not a bundle of services. I typically do an a la carte style, meaning I price my color services based on how long they'll take me and how much product I'm going to use and what I'm actually going to be doing. So typically my basic, like a service like this would be considered a highlight low light. That's about $300 just for the color portion. So that's just for me to do this portion. That does not include my treatment, because remember I said a little bit earlier, your Defy Damage treatment is going to be an upcharge. You're going to make sure to add that and factor it into your color total. So I do my Defy Damage treatment as an upcharge. Typically that's about $40 to $50, depending on the person and the density of their hair. And once I do add that in there, I add in the finished style, cut if they need cut, etc. So the way that it's broken up, the way that my pricing is broken up is typically based on what all I'm doing and what all is included. But this particular service can range anywhere from $450 to $550. It just depends on the person and what all I have to do to their hair. That was a really, really good question. So guys, I said a little bit earlier about utilizing your Defy Damage. Something that I would suggest, if this is not a service that you're offering at the moment, adding in that Defy Damage treatment, make sure to talk to your clients about that and about the importance of the health of their hair as it pertains to color, because they'll genuinely appreciate the fact that you are offering a treatment that's going to help to keep the integrity of their hair through the color process. So just make sure to begin educating your clients on that as you are adding these types of services to your service menu. It's a really great way for you to be able to just keep that transparency with your clients and let them know, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. It's going to benefit you and your hair, and they will genuinely appreciate it. I did not have any really pushback once I started adding in the Defy Damage treatment to my services. It was just much more simple that way. And again, my clients appreciated it because they knew at the end of the day, I was prioritizing the health of their hair. So they genuinely appreciated that. All right, guys, we're still working through our sections the exact same way. And I'm actually going to put the pedal to the metal because we're at 3:30. I want you guys to be able to see this toning method and how I did it, and specifically what I use, because this is actually one of my new favorites. It's a little bit new, so I'm excited for you guys to try it because it is absolutely one of my new favorite toners. I really didn't think I was going to find anything like that I love more than 9NV, but I think I just did. So what are you guys' favorite toners in the Lumishine Liquid Demis? If you guys have a favorite toner, drop it in the comments. I would love to see what you guys are using right now and what you are in love with. What is your go-to blonding toner? So we're still working. Remember I said I'm taking my brush and I am angling it. I'm actually working with the Joico angled brush. So it just makes it a little bit easier. If you don't have an angled brush, just turn your brush slightly vertical, or turn it to the side, and it really helps to just kind of create that look. And remember I said I am taking my brush, and when I get to where that line of demarcation would be, I'm feathering up, just to make sure that that hair is saturated and I'm not dragging the product down the hair. I want it to stay nice and heavy at the very edge of my foil. So I am still alternating back and forth between my two formulas. Remember, I used BlondeLife Cream Lightener and 20 Volume, and LumiShine Permanent Cream 10 NV Natural Violet and 40 Volume. And it's going to be a true game changer for you, because one thing that I love the most about 10 NV is it's going to give you a nice lift, but also it's going to help to remove that warm underlying pigment as you are lifting the hair. So it's going to lift and deposit all at the same time. So you won't have to worry about that brassiness that typically happens when you just pre-lighten the hair, because you're going to be using a shade that's going to lift and deposit all in one. So that is one absolute reason that I love the permanent shades, but also the fact that they only take about 35 minutes to process is like the bomb. So when you are working with the LumiShine permanent shades, typically the processing time is 35 minutes universally, with the exception of using the high lifts or doing gray coverage. And if you are doing gray coverage, you would use a 20 volume developer and the processing time would be 45 minutes. If you're using a high lift, you're going to use 40 volume developer and it's going to be processing for 60 minutes. And so that's going to allow time for that high lift to lift that hair and lift through all of that warm underlying pigment up to 4 levels. And it's going to deposit that tone that's going to neutralize that warm or brassy underlying pigment. Very similar to what our permanent shades do, but it's going to give you all of that in that 4 levels of lift, high lift. All right, guys, we are coming up to our last section. Remember I said if you're working with a mountain, you're going to cut the peak off. So you're just going to cut that off, and this little bit of hair is going to be the perfect halo over this whole section, because essentially what's going to happen is both of these sections are going to be a highlight. This is the crown of the head, so it's going to give a nice amount of depth right over that highlight, and once it spreads out, it's going to give softness and diffusion. So again, just small little things that you can do to really give yourself a leg up in your lightening and coloring process, but also look out for your client. So I'm still working with my diagonal sections, over directing my sections backwards, and moving through my hair, or moving through my client's hair, taking about 1/4 inch or less than 1/4 inch slices. And I'm alternating my formulas between my formula 1, which is my LumiShine Permanent Color, and 40 Volume, and that's 10 NV Natural Violet, and my BlondeLife Cream Lightener with 20 Volume. And remember I said the processing time for the permanent shades are about 35 minutes, and BlondeLife typically is a fast moving lightener, especially if you're looking for that high lift. So typically BlondeLife processes fairly quickly, even with the lowest volume, like 5. That's what I would normally use. But in this case, because we are not looking to get a super high lift and she's starting off at about a level 5-6, we don't need a super slow lift today. We actually want to go ahead and let this lift nice and controlled. And typically I'm going to see my lightening process where my BlondeLife is going to lift up to that level 8-9. in about 45 minutes. And my high lift, or I'm sorry, not my high lift, my permanent shade is going to give me that beautiful level 8, cool, neutralized, warm tone. And the reason why I also wanted to make sure that they were processing about the same amount of time is because I want to have a lift. So I want a color that is bright and vibrant. And then I also want one that's a little less bright, but not dull brown. So I actually want to get as much lift as I possibly can from both of these, but I'm okay with my BlondeLife or my lightened slices to be a little bit brighter and a level up over my permanent color slices. Because remember, we're trying to create a multi-tone look. We want this to be as blended as possible. And in order to get blended, you don't always have to use lightener all the way through. You can utilize your permanent colors to get more lift than you would naturally by using a higher volume developer. But you also can incorporate your lightener as well, so you can mix them if you're looking to create that multi-tonal look. This is something that I do quite often, especially for my clients who have texture and curls, because they like to keep the integrity of that curl, but they still want to be able to have unique multi-tonal looks. So I like to do techniques that'll help to give them that while still incorporating their natural base. Because if you don't absolutely have to lift or change the natural base, don't. Blend it in. It helps to give you a nice blended look that can be lived in for quite a while. All right, if you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat. I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions that you guys have. I didn't see the chat moving, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't frozen again. All right. So we're still moving through our sections. And I am literally working on the back quadrant, and I'm just literally turning my foils the opposite direction. So something else that I want to suggest is that when you are doing this type of application, get creative with the way that you apply your foils into the hair. Guys, I don't want you to get stuck in doing things one way because I said so. Get creative. So if you want to do slices and weaves, do slices and weaves. If you want to do all weaves and no slices, that is totally up to you. The deciding factor is going to be how bright does your client want to be? How blended do they want to be? Are you looking for super blended like my mannequin over here? Or are you okay with the hair having some highlight, some low light, and a little high contrast? If you're okay with that, then opt for weaves. Weaves will give you that high contrast because you're going to be weaving in that natural base as well. But if you are okay with a super blended look, or your client is okay with a super blended look, opt for slices. Again, it's just a great way to be able to give your clients a unique look that they're not going to get anywhere else. And you are going to work quite smart and not quite as hard. So we're coming up on our last foil. And another thing about me is I'm a creature of habit. So I like to pay attention to what I'm doing when I am applying my foils and working with different tones. It's gotten better for me since I know how to educate and work at the same time. But one thing I like to do, just a little tip, keep either your brushes different, your bowls different, or tag your bowls so you know what's what. In today's case, it's pretty obvious because I'm working with permanent color and lightener, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I accidentally dipped my permanent color brush in my lightener bowl earlier. And I know I'm not the only one who's done that or who's experienced it. So just a pro tip, tag your bowls. It's a good way for you to be able to make sure that you're not accidentally doing what I did earlier, because yeah, that's a headache and a hassle. So that's a good little tip for you guys. Use different brushes, different colored bowls, or tag your bowls. I saw somebody recently put tape on the base of the bowl and just wrote it in permanent marker. It was a really good and creative way to be able to do it without necessarily having to use different color brushes. All right, y'all. So we are finished with our section. As you guys can see, we have hair left out in between. So we'll have some depth and some dark. I'm going to go in and hit this lighten section after I finish applying this toner, because remember guys, I want the hair to lift nice and bright, but I also do not want to overcompromise it. So if you have somebody who has already had a bright face frame around their face and they want to go lighter, or they want to blend it all in, if you need to go over that highlighted section, save it for last, because it's a great way to make sure that you get it nice and bright without breaking down or compromising the health of the hair, especially because the hair right around the front is typically the most fragile. So just be mindful of that. Do that last. If you can do it even at the bowl, great way to do it. Make sure that you get it nice and bright without breaking down that hair. So now we're gonna tone. And I am saving, I was saving this for last because this is literally my favorite toner right now. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the buttery blonde technique, or even the neutral warm, the champagne toned blondes. They're really, really popular right now. And I know that a lot of people are enjoying it. They're kind of stepping back from the super ashy, super cool colors. And they are embracing just a tad bit of warmth. So this new tone by Joico in the Lumishine Liquid Demis, the VG series, is violet gold. Violet is the primary, gold is the secondary. And I know a lot of people are like, but I thought yellow neutralizes purple. In theory, it does. However, the ratio of violet to gold in this is perfect to where it creates the most natural, beautiful tone. It still has, the hair still has brightness and vibrance, but it cools it off ever so slightly. Guys, when I say I used it for the first time, maybe like 2 months ago, and I was hooked. And so I'm grateful to Joico for sending me multiple of these to test out a long time ago, because I'm at a point now where I'm like, I cannot go without it. So that is what we're going to use to tone the other side of the head. So these bottles are about 2 ounces, and I'm going to use 1.5 ounces. The mixing ratio for our liquid demis is 1:1. So 1 ounce of developer to 1 ounce of color. And it's going to be mixed with our 5 volume developer. I'm just using the BlondeLife coconut oil because this is like one of my new favorite developers. It's very, very creamy in its consistency, and it has coconut oil mixed in there, so it really helps to keep the hair super hydrated when you're dealing with blondes. So that's what I'm going to mix with my demi liquid today. And just a little education about the demi liquids. They are deposit only, so you're not looking to get any lift of tone whatsoever. These are going to shift the tone of the hair. So whatever you're starting with is going to shift the tone. And I love to follow up with a liquid demi on pre-lightened hair because it's quite sheer in its application. You don't have to worry about it going super dark or being super progressive. The actual timing of utilizing a liquid demi on pre-lightened hair is about 10 minutes or so, depending on how light you go and how much tonal neutralizing you need to happen. So I typically, with my blondes, I love to go about 10 minutes of processing on damp hair, which is why I left her hair nice and damp. Not damp as in water still in it, but towel dry. So if you notice that your client's hair is still dripping wet, as you guys can see, her hair is not dripping anymore. But if you squeeze it and there's still a lot of water coming out, use your towel to make sure that you get all of the moisture out of the hair. Because remember I said these are sheer in the tone that they're going to deposit. So you're just going to take a microfiber and get all of that extra moisture out of their hair. You can squeeze it out so you can make sure that that tone is not going to have any barrier against it. So I just like to make sure that I have it nice and towel dry. And once I apply it, I normally just set a timer on my watch and kind of walk away. because I don't really worry about my liquid demis. Again, guys, it's not progressive at all. I actually am able to use the liquid demis on a lot of my very bright platinum blondes, and I literally can set it and forget it, because what I do is I make sure in my time of planning, I'm formulating according to what I'm going to need. And so something else that I would suggest for you guys, when it comes to toning, don't rush the process of picking your toner. Wait until you have lightened the hair so you can see what it's going to lift to. Because sometimes you will go into it with the mindset of, oh, I'm going to use 9NV to tone it. But what if their hair doesn't quite lift to level 9 inside, or, you know, banana yellow, and you plan on using that 9NV, but actually they got lifted to outside of a banana yellow level 8. That 9NV is not going to do anything. And you're going to mix it up and apply it to the hair and be disappointed because it didn't do anything. But when you are planning your tonal or your toner and what you're going to use after you've pre-lightened the hair, allow the hair to lift completely. And I mean, take those foils out of the hair, dry it as much as you possibly can, and see how much lift you actually got. The hair always looks darker when it's wet, so don't judge when you're at the shampoo bowl, because that's not a true tale of how light the actual hair is. So when you are finished with your lightener process, you've shampooed, you've done your Pro Series 2 and rinsed that out, go ahead and towel dry that hair. And if it makes you feel more comfortable, blow dry it, do a nice rough dry so that you can make sure you get most of that moisture out of the hair. And check and see what the tone of the hair actually is, because you'll have a plan in your mind, but you'll be disappointed if it doesn't come out the way you thought it would, because the hair just was not light enough. So I like to make sure that when I am blonding, I take my time with selecting my toner. I don't rush into that process because I do not want to have the wrong thing, but I will say I typically keep everything that I need, pretty much all of my favorite tones on hand. But if you do not have a full dispensary of product, that's totally fine. Some of my favorites, just to give you guys some ones that you could just make sure that you have on hand, are 9NV, Lumishine Liquid Demi 9NV, now 9VG, Violet Gold, 10V, 10SB, BlondeLife 8N. Guys, when I say that one is so pretty, it is the most beautiful neutral blonde without being super dark. It is gorgeous. So yes, the BlondeLife 8N. These are all liquids, guys. So when you're in your local Cosmoprof or you're placing an order, you make sure that you mention that you want the liquid demis. Yes, 9NV, 9VG, any of the ends, any of the naturals, those are all pretty much very beautiful. 8 is my favorite, especially for that like banana yellow that sometimes just does not lift out. It really cools it off and gives it a very natural finish. So that's one of my favorites to keep on hand at all times. NWB in any level. That's a good one to have for those who like a more warm finish. It's a beautiful warm beige, so I would definitely suggest having NWB at almost any level. If you're doing gray coverage, NG, natural and natural gold are like my favorite to mix together for gray coverage. It gives a perfectly balanced brown at any level, brown or blonde at any level. And I just always keep a ton of 5 volume. I literally probably go through more 5 volume than anything else because I use it for lightener, I use it for toners. So I really go through a ton of 5 volume. So the BlondeLife Coconut 5 volume is probably my favorite right now. But I typically keep 5 volume at all levels. And I'm trying to think, are there any more that I need that are like my must-haves for blondes? I think that's probably it. Like those are like my top ones that I always keep stocked. I never, ever, ever leave the store without them. If they have them in stock, I just buy them up because I want to make sure I'm always prepared and armed with them. So yeah, those are like some of my favorites. So I would definitely, if I were you, I would try out some of those Lumishine Liquid Demis. I promise you will love them. You will not be sorry. They add a ton of shine to the hair, and because they are pre-blended, they're very easy to use. You do not have to overthink with your Lumishine Liquid Demis. What the tone is what you're going to get. And as long as you are thinking about your toner, your color theory, and how you're going to either neutralize or enhance the tone that you've lifted the hair to, you will absolutely fall in love with them. And so as I normally do, I like to just kind of like twist the hair out of the way so it's nice and clean. If I'm like working on an actual client, I'll put a foil over their ear and let the hair fall down like that, or I will comb it back off of the face just so I don't get stains around the front of the hairline or around their ears. Another little tip for just client comfort. So guys, we are at the end of class. We have arrived. So you guys got to see the full highlight application and how I was able to create, hold on, where'd she go? There she is. How I was able to create this beautiful blonde. This is the exact same technique that I use. And remember guys, I said I typically do a ton of slicing. All of my sections are about 1/4 inch, or actually a little less than 1/4 inch. So as I am going through and I'm doing that type of sectioning, full slices, you're going to get a very beautiful blend. And you guys can see, even with her hair, remember I said I left that little bit of depth at the root because I wanted it to be nice and blended with that natural base. So even though there's still hair left out in between those foils, I'm able to still get a beautiful blend because I have 2 tones of blonde, 2 levels of blonde that are blending in with that natural base. And remember I said we started out with that blonde face frame that we wanted to blend in. And if you look at it, it's still there, but it's just really blended. And so this is a great way, again, guys, to create that very natural and lived-in look without compromising the hair, and also making sure to give your client what they're asking for and play around with some different tones. So be sure to utilize this technique in your next color application. I hope that you guys are able to try out that 9 Violet Gold. I promise you are going to die for it. I love it. So yes, I want you guys to make sure that you try that out. If you guys have any questions, now is the time. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have. Let's see. Yes, Lynn said, is this recorded for review? Yes, it's recorded. You'll be able to see the replay as soon as we close out this live, so don't you worry. Oh, Hair and Beauty said, love the NWB. Absolutely. That is one of my favorites, seriously. At almost any level, even down to 4, I love the NWBs. They look beautiful, especially on those like really rich brunettes. Such a beautiful tone. Okay, let's see. Oh, Hair and Beauty said, we don't have the coconut 5 volume in the UK. Can't wait to use it. We have 5 volume. We'll check when I'm at when I'm in the salon next. Yes, make sure that whenever you guys do get it, you're gonna love it. I promise. Especially for those blondes, it goes along with the BlondeLife family. But you would love it even with some of the traditional liquid demi toners. Like I said, I pretty much buy 5 volume like I drink it, so I have 5 volume all the time. But yes, you will absolutely love it. So yes, if you guys have any questions, please, we have about 5 minutes left before we have to close out today. If you guys have questions, I would love to answer any questions that you might have, whether it's pertaining to the technique or what we used today. Just a very quick recap: we use BlondeLife Cream Lightener and 20 Volume Developer, and that was in the Lumishine 20 Volume BlondeLife Cream Lightener. And that BlondeLife Cream Lightener gives you up to 9+ levels of lift. So that is going to be your friend if you're looking for those high impact blondes and you're looking to get that beautiful high lift. That is going to be your best friend. And because it is cream, it is very hydrating through the lifting process. Last but not least, we used our 10 in V as our second tone with Lumishine 40 volume developer. So that was our formula 2. And we did slices, diagonal slices, slicing, and we were alternating those two formulas. So again, it gives you a nice, beautiful blended look because we're leaving hair out in between our foils. So you're working in that natural base to where you don't have to do a shadow root if you don't want to. You can leave your natural base as the depth of your style. And it just gives you the most beautiful blended tone. Last but not least, guys, if you have not tried it, go get you some 9VG Violet Gold. You will fall in love like I did, genuinely. It is the most beautiful, perfectly balanced toner, and it gives you the most vibrant blonde. I love it. So yes, if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. If not, we're going to go ahead and close on out. Please make sure that you check out this replay. If you didn't get a moment, if you did not get a chance to watch it from the beginning, check out the replay. You'll be able to find it on the Facebook page shortly after this, actually. And you also can check out my page for the final finish at TColoredMe, and that's tee.colored.me. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's class, and I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye, everybody.